Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. Pakistan says India is instigating sectarian terrorism in the country. Prime Minister Imran Khan said this at a ceremony in Islamabad. Khan said the recent attack on the ethnic Hazara community in Much was part of an Indian plot. He said Pakistan's intelligence agencies have foiled many terror attempts in the past. Pakistan has lifted all restrictions on visas for Bangladeshi citizens in a major development to boost ties between the two countries. In a statement, Pakistan High Commissioner in Bangladesh, Imran Ahmed Siddiqui, said Islamabad is waiting for the same response from Dhaka. The 8th round of talks between the government and farmers remain inconclusive, deepening the deadlock over the repeal of new agriculture laws. The two sides have agreed to meet again next week. Since late November, thousands of farmers have been camping at Delhi borders to protest against the laws they say only favor big corporates. In the United States, President Donald Trump has finally assured that a new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. In a video message, Trump condemned the Capitol Hill violence. He said his focus now shifts to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition. He spoke as top Democrats called for him to be removed from office just 13 days before he is due to step down. The U.S. has reported its highest coronavirus-related deaths in a single day, with nearly 4,000 fatalities overnight. The nation's death toll has surpassed 365,000 with 21.5 million infections. Meanwhile, Brazil has recorded more than 200,000 fatalities since the pandemic began, with nearly 8 million cases. In Pakistan, the virus has claimed 48 lives and infected around 2,400 people in the past day. There are more than 10,500 fatalities across the country. Globally, there are 1.89 million deaths and over 88 million cases. In the National Basketball Association, San Antonio Spurs beat reigning champions Lakers at 118-109. LaMarcus Aldridge scored 28 points to lead the Spurs to victory. The Lakers have captured 2 of the 3 meetings between the clubs in the past 9 days. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. Pakistan says India is instigating sectarian terrorism in the country. Prime Minister Imran Khan said this at a ceremony in Islamabad. Khan said the recent attack on the ethnic Hazara community in the Much coalfield was part of an Indian plot. The Premier asserted that India is trying its best to spread chaos in Pakistan. He said Pakistan's intelligence agencies have foiled many terror attempts in the past. Earlier, 11 coal miners belonging to the minority community were shot dead by unidentified attackers in Balochistan. Pakistan has lifted all restrictions on visas for Bangladeshi citizens in a major development to boost ties between the two countries. In a statement, Pakistan's High Commissioner in Bangladesh, Imran Ahmed Siddiqui, said Islamabad is awaiting a similar response from Dhaka. He added the two sides aim to intensify bilateral contacts at all levels. Following a meeting with Bangladesh Foreign Affairs Minister, he regretted that curbs on Pakistani nationals are still in place. Bangladesh Foreign Ministry said the country is looking forward to engaging with Pakistan. Earlier, the Pakistani envoy called on Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, with the two sides discussing various bilateral issues. The 8th round of talks between the government and farmers remain inconclusive, deepening the deadlock over the repeal of new agriculture laws. The two sides have agreed to meet again next week. Since late November, thousands of farmers have been camping at Delhi borders to protest against the laws they say only favor big corporates. The recently passed agriculture laws that allowed the government to stop buying grain at fixed prices. The farmers say they won't end their protest until the government repeals the new laws. Farmer unions and opposition parties blame Prime Minister Narendra Modi's insensitive attitude for the lingering crisis. U.S. President Donald Trump has finally assured that a new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. In a video message, Trump condemned the Capitol Hill violence. He said his focus now shifts to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition.
President Trump said he immediately deployed the National Guard to expel the intruders, but some media reports say he had hesitated, leaving his vice president to give the order. Trump spoke as top Democrats called for him to be removed from office just 13 days before his term is over.
My only goal was to ensure the integrity of the vote. In so doing, I was fighting to defend American democracy. I continue to strongly believe that we must reform our election laws to verify the identity and eligibility of all voters and to ensure faith and confidence in all future elections.
House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called for immediate impeachment proceedings if Vice President Mike Pence and Trump's cabinet refuse to take steps to remove Trump from power. Meanwhile, Capitol Police say one officer has died from injuries sustained during the riots. 4 others also died during the unrest. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund has announced his resignation over unpreparedness to deal with the invasion.
China says the U.S. is playing with fire by sending a UN envoy to Taiwan next week. In a statement, Chinese mission to the UN said the U.S. will pay a heavy price for its provocations. It said the Taiwan question concerned China's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and core interests. The UN mission said Beijing opposes any forms of official contacts between Washington and Taipei. Strongly opposing the visit, Beijing called on Washington to stop creating new difficulties for U.S.-China relations. The two are at odds over a range of issues, including the COVID-19 pandemic, Hong Kong, and the South China Sea. Iran says it can enrich uranium up to 90% of purity owing to its scientific achievements. A spokesperson for Iran's Atomic Energy Organization said that Iran can enrich the metal above 20% if needed. Iran recently announced it was refining uranium to 20% purity. This was the biggest break yet from its commitments under a 2015 nuclear deal struck with world powers. Germany, France, and Britain have said they are deeply concerned at Iran's move, warning of very significant risks. Turkey says it has neutralized 4 militants of the Kurdistan Workers' Party in northern Iraq. It says the airstrikes were part of a counter-terrorist operation. The National Defense Ministry said military operations were carried out in the Gara and Avishan regions. The ministry said Ankara's operations against the terrorist organization will continue. The U.S. has reported its highest coronavirus-related deaths in a single day, with nearly 4,000 fatalities overnight. The nation's toll has surpassed 365,000 with 21.5 million infections. Meanwhile, Brazil has recorded more than 200,000 fatalities since the pandemic began, with nearly 8 million cases. Globally, there are 1.89 million deaths and over 88 million cases.
With passing time and mounting deaths, complexities of the coronavirus pile up. A new study by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has found that more than half of the infections are transmitted by asymptomatic people. As U.S. recorded its deadliest day of the pandemic so far, experts say the country has essentially lost its battle against the virus. Over in the South, Colombia's capital, Bogota, is entering a strict quarantine due to rising infections and suspicion that the new variant is circulating in the city. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization says developing states can start receiving vaccines as soon as this month.
We need about $7 billion in order to deliver enough vaccine to these countries through the end of 2021. And the facility has already raised about $6 billion of the $7 billion. So the facility has access to over 2 billion doses of vaccine. And we will start to deliver those vaccines probably by the end of January, and if not, then certainly by early February and mid-February. So
the organization's European branch says the new variant called B117 is currently present in 22 Euro states. UK PM Boris Johnson says almost 1.5 million people have been vaccinated as he vows to inoculate the most vulnerable people by mid-February. France says it will keep restrictions imposed for an indefinite period as the country prepares for its vaccination program. Meanwhile, Spain has now become the fourth Western European state to pass 2 million COVID-19 cases.
The total of confirmed cases reported by the autonomous regions via the monitoring system passes today 2 million cases. Since last Tuesday, the 5th, 42,360 new cases. Around 6,500 cases were reported yesterday, as you can see in the charts, and the rest are from the previous days. The cumulative cases per 100,000 people in the last 14 days in Spain are 321. As you can see, it has grown since our last report on Tuesday.
As Japan battles a severe third wave, the Prime Minister has declared a state of emergency in the capital, Tokyo. Meanwhile, China restricted people in Hebei province from leaving the city. Over in Australia, Queensland has enforced a 3-day lockdown after a hotel worker tested positive for the more contagious new strain.
Now moving on to Pakistan, 48 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This takes the country's death toll to over 10,558. The Health Ministry reported 2,435 new infections overnight. There are more than 33,000 active cases in the country at the moment. Out of over 497,000 countrywide cases, more than 453,000 people have recovered. The ministry said nearly 223,000 cases have been detected in the Sindh province, while Punjab has reported more than 143,000 cases. In the capital city Islamabad, over 38,000 have been infected so far. Bahrain has conferred its top military award on Pakistan Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa. The Pakistan military says Bajwa received the Order of Bahrain from Crown Prince Salman bin Hamad during his visit to Bahrain. In a statement, the Army's media wing said the Army Chief was awarded for his significant contributions to defense cooperation. It said Bajwa also witnessed the closing ceremony of Pak-Bahrain joint military exercise Al-Badr 5 at Sakhir camp. Addressing the ceremony, General Bajwa said the exercise signifies the joint efforts of both nations against terrorism. Bajwa and Crown Prince Salman also discussed bilateral ties and reviewed regional security in the Middle East. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. And now moving on to Ethiopia, the army says it has killed 4 core members of the Tigray People's Liberation Front and arrested 9 officials. In a statement, Army Chief Tesfaye Ayalew said the military and Ethiopian police conducted a joint operation. He said they killed officials include the TPLF spokesperson, its financial bureau head, and other high-ranking personnel. Meanwhile, the detained persons include the former envoy to Sudan and Tigray State Council Speaker. However, Ayalew did not disclose when and where the operation took place. Thousands were killed after Addis Ababa launched a military offensive against the Tigray rebels last year. The UN says the latest attacks in Niger's Tilaberi region forced more than 10,000 people to evacuate. The Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says many survivors in the 2 villages had to flee on foot. It said Niger's government provided food and medical supplies for the victims of the attacks, and the government is also providing financial assistance to the families of deceased civilians. The UN said more than 500 displaced children are now out of school. Over 100 civilians were gunned down last Sunday in a terror attack in the western region bordering Mali. Canada has rejected Iran's offer of $150,000 for the families of victims of a Ukrainian airliner shot down on 1 year ago. Special Advisor Ralph Goodale said Iran has no right to decide the compensation to the 176 passengers. He said the reparations can only be agreed at special talks between Iran and the 5 nations whose citizens died. Goodale added that damages are more than just compensation, and Tehran has great responsibilities for justice, transparency, and accountability. Tehran shot down a Ukraine plane on January 9 last year, misidentifying it as an incoming U.S. attack. The crash killed 55 Canadian citizens, 30 permanent residents, and passengers from Ukraine, UK, Afghanistan, and Sweden. Now moving on to South Korea, a court has ordered Japan to pay over $91,000 each to 12 Korean victims of sex slavery during World War II. The landmark ruling is likely to aggravate the already chilly relations between Washington's 2 key allies in Asia. It said evidence and testimonies show the victims suffered from extreme mental and physical pain due to Japanese troops. The government records show that out of 200,000 victims, only 16 are still alive and await justice. The Japanese government said the Korean court had no jurisdiction over Japan and it would never accept the order. Parts of Spain have been covered by a rare snowfall, causing traffic disruption and cancelling flights, as the country records the lowest temperature in its history. Details in the following report.
The capital city of Spain, Madrid, experienced an unusual snowfall this week due to Storm Filomena, as it registered a low of -2 degrees Celsius. Whereas in Toledo, around 40 miles away from the Spanish capital, white sheets enveloped the city and made driving difficult on roads as the temperature dropped to -1.
They say that snowy years are prosperous years. We will see if this is true.
Cold front blowing in from the Atlantic Ocean blasted snow and icy rain, spending the temperatures to -34.1 Celsius in the Spanish Pyrenees. Spain's weather agency says this was the lowest temperature ever recorded on the Iberian Peninsula. It says the freezing weather is likely to remain through Sunday.
It is a little bit messy. They've put salt on it, but sometimes it slips a little bit. But it's very nice at least.
Storm Filomena also hit the Canary Islands and the southwestern coast of the peninsula, bringing unusually intense winds and rain. The Spanish airport operator says authorities cancelled at least 30 flights in the Canary Islands due to intense weather conditions.
Now moving on to the business stories, European stocks are trading higher as investors anticipate greater fiscal support from the incoming Democratic government in the U.S. The Pan-European Stock 600 has risen over 0.5%, with travel and leisure stocks adding over 2.5%. London's FTSE 100 has gained marginally, while Italy's FTSE MIB and Frankfurt's DAX have added nearly 1%. The CAC 40 in Paris has edged up more than 0.5%. Earlier, most Asian bourses traded higher except for mainland Chinese shares. And now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.